Hello and welcome to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter LaBelle. Like a bull in a china shop, Donald Trump's style and negotiation skills were on full display at this year's annual NATO gathering. He was not shy about how he feels about the alliance. Now, the Trump Putin summit is front and center. Will it be a mere photo op or something more? Cross-talking the Trump-Putin summit, I'm joined by my guest, Ariel Casanta in London. He is a foreign affairs consultant and analyst. In New York, we have Charles Ortel. He is a private investor and writer, as well as host of the podcast show Sunday with Charles. And in Lake Jackson, we have Daniel McAdams. He is the executive director of the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. All right, gentlemen, crosstalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want, and I always appreciate it. Daniel, let me go to you first in Lake Jackson. Let's think about the afterglow of, well, it was an interesting, yes, even entertaining to some degree, summit of NATO this year. I'm not sure if anything really is going to stick because we have like Macron coming out saying, well, we talked about budget increases, but we didn't agree on anything. So I don't know what that we know it was a public display and Trump's style, okay? And he left a lasting impression. As we go into the Putin-Trump summit, where do you think things stand? Go ahead, Daniel.
Well, you know, Trump said all the right things for the wrong reasons. Yep. He missed a lot of the big points, but he exposed one thing that's probably the most important thing to come out of the NATO summit, which is that NATO is a racket. It's an absolute racket. And he exposed that with his comments about Germany. Germany, if you are so afraid of Russia, if Russia is about to invade you, why are you enriching them with billions and billions of dollars in trade and not building up your own military? He's exposed it for the whole world. NATO is a racket. And I think that should be the one thing that comes out of the summit.
Adriel, what's the perspective from London? Because that's where the President of the United States is right now. Go ahead.
Well, in London, everyone is concerned with smearing Donald Trump. We don't have a serious debate. Obviously, it was 2 days ago, Mr. Edward Lucas, a former editor of The Economist, had this expose, I would say, in the BBC saying that we need to stick together because NATO is, crumbling. So the general outlook within the political elite, I mean, among the politicians in the UK, is that they don't know. I mean, they are scared. They are scared of losing the incentives and everything which has been granted to them so far. So we, as I said before, we don't have a serious debate. We have accusations, blame game, but we don't have any serious debate, which is lacking, and it's exposing what. And I agree with Daniel that in Europe, I mean, I don't blame Donald Trump. They allow him to play on their nose. Okay, I don't blame Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with Daniel. Let me go to Charles right now. I think a lot of questions that need to be answered were never asked. But one thing is for sure, Charles, Donald Trump was true to his avocation. He's a businessman. Buy American weapons, buy American energy. That's his real message. It really wasn't about security. It was about, we want you to buy our stuff here. And that was his bottom line. Charles, go ahead.
Well, I also think that there's a lesson in history. When NATO was formed, Western Europe lay in ruins, and the Soviet Union was a gathering threat, a very severe gathering threat. That was 70 years ago almost. And the big nations in Europe are very wealthy. Speaking just as an American based here in New York in 1952 was the manufacturing capital of America. It was a major exporter. Today, New York State is a bloated bureaucracy. Our manufacturing is in ruin. And, we need to spend money. We need to encourage investors to spend money here. And it absolutely makes no sense across the political spectrum, I think, in the U.S. to be sending billions and billions of dollars to defend Germany against Russia, when Germany seems very interested in promoting Russia's economic interests. So it's time to have that grown-up talk, and it's ridiculous to wait till 2025 for these rich European nations to foot their share of the bill.
Okay, Daniel, but the interesting thing for me is that, and I've said this on this program a number of times, NATO exists because it exists. They don't have a reason why, except for there's a huge, bloated, and very comfortably paid bureaucracy there. Everybody gets a cut of the pie, and that's why, Theresa May, she might not even be in power this time next week, and she told Trump, I want you to be tough with Putin, okay? And that's the only card that she gets to play, and that's the only way she gets to stay closer to Europe through this Brexit quagmire, is to, NATO is the alliance that gels everything together. But it's really an emperor with no clothes argument. Go ahead, Daniel.
Well, she basically got caught in a lie, and she's trying to get other people to help lie the way out of it. She's desperate for Trump to bring up the Skripal affair because, everything that they said about it has completely been undermined by facts. The idea that Putin went over there and poisoned a former Russian spy. But the fact of the matter is, the Germans, there's a new poll that's out saying that more Germans want Americans to leave than to stay. And that is such a significant thing. Europe does not feel threatened by Russia at all. Otherwise, they would spend. If you had a threatening neighbor next door, you may buy a gun, you may move, you may do something else. But if you just sit there and take it, then you don't really feel threatened. And I think that's the case with Europe. And you're right, NATO is this big monster that exists to exist. It's a bureaucracy. They built a big scary claw.
Yeah, the claw.
As their new headquarters. I think it cost $1 billion, at least, I'm sure. They're expanding into very malevolent areas, funding things like the Atlantic Council, which does nothing but to try to destroy journalists who are not on board with the neocon, anti-Russia view. So it's become a very malevolent anti-freedom organization rather than pro-West, pro-freedom organization.
Adriel, as we're going to talk about the summit in the second half of the program, but did NATO come off very well after this summit here? Because I think we all agree, Trump questioned a lot of important things, but he didn't question what I think is fundamentally, the reason why the alliance exists in the first place. And it was really quite telling because he's the one that said, well, Russia isn't an enemy, it's a competitor. Again, this is his mindset. This is not the mindset of a military alliance, okay? They don't have that mindset because, Trump in the West, they build weapons to make money. It's a business. A country like Russia builds primarily weapons for defense. It doesn't mean they don't go out on the road and sell them, but primarily it's for defense. Go ahead, in London.
Yes, but we first of all, we have to understand that NATO is a huge business for many people. So the NATO industry, anti-Russia industry, it is a glue which is sticking together the Western nations. So that's why we are seeing this fear and the sense of insecurity among the elites. And as you rightly said, and what a World Cup 2018 in Moscow proved, is that people are not afraid. Ordinary people are not afraid of Russians. Many citizens from all over the world came to Russia, and they were pleased with what they saw in Moscow, in Russia altogether. So it is, as Daniel rightly said, it is 47% of German populace, which is unwilling to have the U.S. troops on their soil. It is only 35 or 34 which is still willing to have U.S. troops on German soil. So if you talk to the regular people, even in Poland, in Czech Republic, in France, they are not scared of Russia. Excuse me. It is only the elites, those who are participating and profiting from stigmatizing Russia, are afraid, because what they are going to do when the whole anti-Russia business will collapse. Where they are going to find work? Nowhere.
Because Russophobia and anti-Russia, it's also a racket. Okay, you can never be. You can say anything you want about Russia and be completely wrong, and you'll never be punished for it. Charles,
let me just
go ahead, jump in.
Let me just Yeah, let me just say one quick thing. If you happen to have a Eastern European ancestry and you are willing to smear Russia, you will earn a lot of money.
Yeah.
I remember when I arrived 6 years ago to this country and I started to be working as a researcher in a House of Commons. I remember, and I will not tell the name of the person, but I was assured that if I'm going to participate in this chutzpah, if I'm going to participate only on the merit of the fact that I'm coming from the Eastern Europe, I will earn a lot of money. So it tells a lot in the industry.
Oh, yeah. You know, absolutely. And Charles, I mean, again, I'm kind of looking at Trump's mindset, and there's this other issue of trade that's on the margin right now, is in this conversation, is that, you know, Trump sees that the United States was very generous in helping rebuild Europe for geopolitical reasons. It wasn't just generosity, okay? And now you have a very rich continent. Sure, it has a lot of problems. A lot of the problems are self-induced, okay? And if they're not happy with the United States as a leader of NATO, why don't they have their own defense alliance? They're not poor. They have technology. They have people. Oh, but then again, nobody wants to join the German army. And I heard there's like only, 12 tanks that run? I mean, really, it's not a military alliance. It's a propaganda alliance. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, and I think it really needs to be reimagined and repurposed. I mean, if you look at NATO, it was effective from 49 until 92. But then after the Soviet Union went away, you know, what has NATO really been doing? And is there a need for an alliance of this group of nations to pursue missions internationally or not? Or should it be a different group of missions? The simple fact is that, rightly or wrongly, the United States over time has spent a lot of money on military, and has, you know, our military has, sadly, a lot of experience fighting around the world. So, of course, you know, if you're going to ally with somebody, you want to think about allying with the United States military. I just think this alliance is another, at this point, globalist bureaucracy that is not regulated properly, that is not serving a clear mission. And, you know, I don't see the strong argument for the U.S. taxpayer, which is sorely indebted at over $21 trillion at this point, to be throwing money at globalist plans.
They should throw the money at building a wall. That's what they need to do. Take that money and build a wall. Gentlemen, we're going to go to a short break, and after that short break, we'll continue our discussion on the Trump-Putin summit. Stay with RT. Welcome back to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lubell. To remind you, we're discussing the Trump-Putin summit. Okay, let me go back to Daniel in Lake Jackson. What are you expecting from this summit? Because, you know, I've read all of the think tank stuff and, you know, I think kind of low octane journalism on it and everything. I don't think there can be a lot accomplished, unfortunately, right now. Primarily, and I'll be really honest, is that I don't think, considering Trump's foreign policy vision and behavior and words, it's going to be more kind of another show, because with the problems back home that he has, I don't think that he can follow up on anything he really wants to do. He's cornered in so many ways. What do you think, Daniel?
Well, you know, Peter, I rarely disagree with you, but in this situation, I may disagree with you a bit, because I think it's enormously significant, if only for the fact, we talked about this before the show, as much as Trump frustrates us and drives us crazy, his detractors are so much worse that we sometimes find ourselves feeling like we're in his corner. So the fact that the neocons are freaking out over this, the resistors, the so-called resistance types, are freaking out over this. A lot of the U.S. Congress is completely freaking out over this. I think it will be even if nothing comes out of it, just the visuals of him and Putin shaking hands, smiling. I bet the two get along on a personal level pretty well.
Oh, I bet.
That's going to send shivers down the spines of the bad guys here at home. So in that case, it's a no-lose for Trump and for Americans.
And let me go back to you. And Daniel is right in the sense that all of the criticism that he's going to get at this Helsinki summit, it's already baked in. I mean, Well, I can't imagine a worse thing you can say about Donald Trump that hasn't been said for the last 2 years, okay? So it's already baked in. I think he likes to goat them, too, in the media. But, I mean, but for substance here, I mean, I hear all this talk, and I think it's kind of low-octane intelligence. You know, they're going to make this grand deal on Syria and all that. I don't think that's really the case. I don't at all. Because I don't think, because, I mean, the Russians have been really smart vis-a-vis Syria. I mean, they're there for very specific purposes. They're not there to confront the West or, you know, some other grander plan. No, they're not, okay? Or they're going to tell the Iranians to get out of Syria. Well, I don't think that's going to happen either, all right? And then there's the issue that I think all of us would like to be resolved, and it won't be, is Ukraine. And I don't think Donald Trump really cares about Ukraine, all right? So, I mean, again, kind of agreeing with Daniel. I mean, just the meeting itself sends a lot of signals. You could just interpret whatever you want. That's what we get with Trump. Trump's a prism. Whatever angle you start, you'll get a different look. Go ahead in London. Go ahead.
Well, I do agree with Daniel saying that Donald Trump detractors are much worse, but my approach is strictly geopolitical. In my opinion, the meeting will be strictly orientational. They will obviously they will present their views on the certain issues around the world, and as you rightly said, there's a deadlock with regards to the Ukrainian farce, I would say, because I'm paying a very close attention from the very beginning what is happening in Ukraine.
We too.
And it happened that yesterday, it was the commemoration of the genocide in Volhynia, in eastern part of Poland, where Stefan Bandera and others were slaughtering Poles and Jews. And well, my wife is happening to coming from this part of Poland. So we can see that Poroshenko is not interested in fulfilling the Minsk agreement. He's pursuing strictly right-wing, fascist, anti-Semitic movements supporting in his country. And even Atlantic Council write an article or report saying, obviously, that this is not the headline from the RT. So we know that everything is slipping, from their hands with regards to Ukraine, because nearly the Ukraine will have the same situation as we have in the Middle East. So it is very, very worrying. Obviously, Donald Trump is pushed by Netanyahu in Israel, and yesterday I had very interesting conversation with my friends from Israel, and Netanyahu will push Donald Trump, and today he is in Moscow, so he also will be pushing President Putin with regards to Iran, and I assume that they will require or they will ask President Putin to somehow facilitate the withdrawal from the Iranian units from Syria. But in my opinion, what Russia can agree to do is to agree to be a security broker between Iran and Israel.
Well, and I
nothing
think,
less,
and
nothing more.
And that is the role that has been playing, okay? And I think it's a very wise role. Russia can talk to everybody in the region, okay? Charles, I saw before his European trip, Trump was on the campaign trail. He was out talking to his base. He loves that, and the base loves it. I sometimes think he's saying, we're going to get along with Putin. And so he's going to have a visual. He's going to have a photo op. And then when he goes back to Deluge and he goes back to Fargo and say, see, I told you I would meet him, and I did it. Okay, I tend to think so much of this is for his base, and it's domestically driven. Everything he does for his base. The appointment of the Supreme Court justice, okay, for the base, okay? So, I mean, Charles, is this more really about domestic politics than geopolitics? Go ahead, Charles.
No, I don't think so at all. I think in this case, there's a clear record now as Donald Trump is president. He always has his eye on the deal, author of The Art of the Deal. So the deal to be had here, I think, and I'm not saying that it'll be concluded at this meeting, the deal to drive towards is a deal where Russia is more than an honest broker, is an active participant. The United States has moved very aggressively to try to get the Sunni states to reject radical Islam. We have limited influence in Iran, but the Iranian economy has done very little for the average Iranian since 1979, and it stands in tremendous peril right now.
But is it our business to
Russia could be
interfere
enormously helpful.
in Iranians' economy and perception of their government? This is not our business. If Iranian government is not doing enough for Iranians, it's up to them.
Charles, go ahead.
Perhaps. Yeah, perhaps. But I'm just talking about the outlines of a deal here. So if one is looking to broker a lasting peace in the Middle East, which I do believe the Trump administration would love to do, on the one hand, that's a dream that we have. It may be a naive and foolish dream, but it's a dream. On the other hand, in Russia, it's under sanction. Yes, it may be doing pretty well under sanctions, but it's better to be out from sanctions than under sanctions.
Okay, well, I'm not really,
I think there
I'm not
is
really
the
sure.
contour of a grand
I'm not
bargain
really
here.
sure I'm following your argument, because if you're talking about sanction relief, well, it's a principle of the Russian foreign ministry. Russia will never ask for the end of sanctions because they don't believe they're legitimate. No evidence has been shown to the public whatsoever of all of the allegations that have made. Not one shred of evidence. So Russia is not going to ask for the end of the sanctions, all right? So that's not on the table at all, okay? Go ahead, Charles.
Well, if I could just jump back in.
Yeah.
So my point to you is, it's at some points with deals, and my background actually is not like Trump as a deal maker, but doing deals. At some point, the arguments don't matter, and I think that's where we're at. It doesn't matter who asked for it. Doesn't matter the diplomatic niceties. You know, it would be better for the sanctions to be removed, I would argue, for Russia.
But
it would be better for the world to have peace in the Middle East.
It's Congress that does that. Congress has to vote to rescind them. You know what, Charles? They will never rescind them, okay? And that's baked in here in Moscow. They know that's not going to happen, all right? Okay, let me go to Daniel here. Daniel, I mean, I think what we heard from London and New York kind of puts everything into the mix right here. The thing is that I don't know what Trump can deliver on, because I don't know what he can deliver on that Putin wants. Go ahead, Daniel.
Well, I would just comment on the whole idea of the Trump administration wanting to broker Middle East peace. I'm not sure that is the focus. I think that's much too strategic of a focus for the Trump administration, which I think is really sort of bogged down in tactical approaches to the world. And I think that's the reason why he likes to break through and have a personal meeting with Kim and now a personal meeting with Trump, which of course terrifies his advisors. You know, there was a CODEL, there was a group of U.S. senators who went to Russia recently, and just showing to prove that the worst thing to get information is on a CODEL, because it's sort of a great exercise in groupthink and bubble mentality. They all came back and showed they had learned absolutely nothing from their time in Russia. I think it was Shelby from Alabama that said that, well, Trump better study Stalin if he wants to understand how to deal with Putin, you know. I mean, it's just these absurdities. Lindsey Graham is out there tweeting his little fingers off about how we've got to stay in Syria forever, and Trump better stand up to Putin. But here's the thing that's interesting. All of the retweets, all of the comments, they're all from the left. They're all from the resistor people. And you touched on it earlier, Peter. When Trump talks about getting along with Russia, his base still does cheer.
Yeah.
You do have a part of the right wing that has this enemy mentality. So you do have this sort of problem. But his base likes that. He was elected on it. His numbers are high because of it. So he has the most important vote of confidence going into this meeting, which is the people that will vote for him if he runs for re-election, are not going to be bothered at all if there's a great visual of two tough guys, let's be honest, shaking hands, smiling. So it's a win-win, again, as I said earlier, for Trump.
Well, and if you look at the Putin's base and you look at Trump's base, both like that picture, okay? Exactly. No, with Daniel here, I mean, again, I mean, even CNN, I noticed the last few days, they even admitted that the American people on the whole are not interested in Russiagate at all. They don't know much about it, they don't follow it, and they just kind of push it out of their mind because it doesn't mean much to them. It certainly does to the resistance people. Let's go back to London. Last word. Is it going to be a thumbs up or a thumbs down with this summit? 20 seconds.
Well, it'll be middle finger. No thumbs up, no thumbs down, but we can all agree that the relation, maybe not relationships, but the contact between two great powers has to improve. has to improve because we are in a very dangerous situation, and I wholeheartedly believe that neither of both sides want to, have this conflict, escalate further. So we have to,
okay, that's all the time we have, gentlemen.
Calm.
But one thing is for sure, it'll be a great photo op. No doubt about that. That's all the time we have, gentlemen. Many thanks to my guests in New York, London, and in Lake Jackson. And thanks to our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time, and remember, crosstalk rules.